My name is Tennille, and I'm an administrator for New Horizon Care Centers, and I'm responsible for overseeing the Isabella House. I've worked here for over 12 and a half years. Isabella House is a residential substance use disorder treatment program for pregnant and parenting women, and we're located here in Spokane. We are a variable length of stay depending on the needs of our families that we serve. So this can range between 4.5 months to 6 months. We're a multifaceted trauma-informed facility where women work on their substance use disorder as well as hands-on parenting education and support. We have beds for 45 women and children ages birth to 5. The vast majority of the women entering treatment here have some involvement with the Department of Child, Youth, and Families, also known as CPS or Child Protective Services. The vast majority of our women entering treatment here have some involvement with the Department of Child, Youth, and Families, also known as CPS or Child Protective Services. Women can arrive with their child or children, or they can work on reunification while they're here with us. Our clinical team serves as a conduit between our patients and all of their providers to ensure that the women are navigating their responsibilities within those systems to avoid further barriers in their recovery. Isabella House uses a harm reduction model. We have a full-time licensed medical professional that provides medication management for our residents receiving medical treatment for their substance use issues. We also coordinate and transport patients to the methadone clinic as needed, but due to our unique treatment setting and housing vulnerable children, we're not able to support other harm reduction models such as the use of THC. Over the last 4 years, we've seen a skyrocketing number of patients entering treatment with their primary drug of choice being fentanyl, or testing positive for fentanyl that was laced in other illicit substances. We have a zero tolerance policy for patients using during their treatment stay. The risk to all of the women, children, and staff is simply too great. I have encountered many patients who have had their children removed due to fentanyl exposure, one of whom did not make it. He was 7 months old. The rise in fentanyl use among this population has led to increased risks of overdose, neonatal health complications, and a need for higher methadone dosing. To address these issues, we offer individualized, flexible treatment approaches and comprehensive care to ensure the safety and well-being of both mothers and their children. Over the years, I've seen many providers experience significant stigmas around substance use disorders. These stigmas come from the healthcare systems, from people in the community, and at times from state agencies such as the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. There has been an increased awareness of substance use disorders as a medical condition, but biases and misconceptions about addiction, especially when it comes to pregnancy and motherhood, persist and can manifest in harmful ways. These stigmas can create large barriers for women seeking medical care, assistance, or treatment. Many of my patients have faced judgments that view them as irresponsible or incapable mothers rather than patients in need of compassionate care. I personally witnessed a labor and delivery nurse at one of our local hospitals deny care to a pregnant patient that I brought in. The patient had not had any prenatal care and was roughly 30 weeks pregnant. She arrived at Isabella House on a weekend and without the necessary medication to prevent her unborn baby from going into distress from opiate exposure. The way this nurse spoke to her was heartbreaking. I stopped her immediately and pulled the nurse aside. I very respectfully, of course, let her know exactly how unprofessional and unethical she was treating my patient, and I would not stand for it. These types of responses can lead a patient to avoid seeking proper and necessary medical care, create distrust of providers, and significantly damage their self-esteem. There is a definite lack of education about substance use disorders, especially with the population I serve. Society as a whole has a tendency to label people who may not align with widely accepted standards or expectations. If you commit a crime, you're a criminal. If you have a substance use disorder, you're an addict. This type of labeling is perpetuated in so many aspects of life. If the majority of what you hear about yourself is you're a criminal or you're an addict, then eventually that's how you'll see yourself because that's how everyone else sees you. I challenge all of my patients to rethink how they view themselves so they can see how truly amazing and valuable they are. There are so many characteristics that make us who we are. Why can't we choose something else, like hardworking or compassionate and hopeful? Once you begin to change how you view yourself, others will begin to do the same. We're a multifaceted, trauma-informed facility where women work on their substance use disorder as well as hands-on parenting education. We have beds for 45 women and children ages birth to 5. In the last year, we've served 118 women and 92 children. I'd say in the last year, we've had an increase in heroin positivity with our UAs, which is a different trend than that we've seen over the course of the last 4 years. Heroin's really fallen out of favor due to the expense of it. Fentanyl is a lot cheaper and a lot more readily available. The ability for my patients to remain in recovery is much harder than it used to be in the past due to the strength of fentanyl. It's a lot harder to combat the withdrawal symptoms of that, even if they've gone through a long treatment program like my own. The pull of fentanyl is so incredibly strong. It's difficult for them to remain in recovery for long periods of time. What we've seen over the last 4 years with the strength of fentanyl, the women have a much harder time remaining in recovery or managing their withdrawal symptoms. The amount of MAT medication that needs to be on board in order to get them comfortable is significantly higher than it's been ever in my career here. So that's been difficult for all of the patients and the staff to manage. With that, the increased dosing of MAT medications, patients often need a longer treatment stay. However, due to Medicaid rate reimbursements or just refusal from MCOs, that is not necessarily factored in, so they're not getting the length of treatment that they would necessarily need to support them through the difficult recovery process with fentanyl. What I have seen recently, or what I just found out recently, is that Washington State considers a pregnant and parenting treatment program like mine to be a 4.5-month stay versus a 6-month stay, which we know is scientifically more successful. That was not told to the PPW programs in Washington. I happened to find that out independently. The insurance companies appear to be switching their game plan on inpatient treatment and not authorizing a longer treatment stay that is necessary for our population particularly. The case management that's involved with a mom and a child or children is significantly more than it would be in any other inpatient residential treatment program. The case management for their children, even if they're not placed here, is significant as well. The clinician is case managing the entire family, and then to stabilize them not only with their substance use disorder, but then with some parenting deficits, which we typically see, takes a lot longer than 4.5 months. And so when they're being cut off, their insurance is cutting them off at 4.5 months or 4 months sometimes, the risk to their recovery and potential relapse is much higher than if we have them for the full 6 months. So that's been disheartening to see happen. I think that as a community, we need to be a lot more supportive of people struggling with substance use disorders, especially with fentanyl. It seems to be a completely different beast than the other drugs that we've seen. The impact it has on the family members, on the children, on the community is massive. The more support they get, the more successful they will be. So surrounding them with supports instead of judgment is going to be the best medicine. So we've seen an increased spike in the amount of fentanyl that our patients are using because it's so inexpensive and the drug is increasing in potency. That is increasing the overdose deaths that are happening within our community. I also believe that carfentanil, which is another additive that they're adding in, is coming this way in quickly, and that's going to end up causing significantly more deaths. I recently attended a UA meeting here in Spokane, and they provided us with some literature for the last 4 years of fentanyl positivity in residents in the United States. There was a spike of carfentanil in about 2020, and then there was a sudden drop-off, likely because the carfentanil was too strong and it was killing their customers. So they backed the carfentanil out, but then continued to pump a lot more regular fentanyl into the system, creating a lot more tolerance for the customers that were using it. And now we're seeing an increase in carfentanil come back, so they're reintroducing it to create a higher and higher tolerance in those that are using it, which makes it harder and harder to treat them. So that's disconcerting for sure. I believe that the field of substance use disorder treatment is really trying to scramble to figure out what to do next. This is a brand new thing for all of us, and it's a lot harder to treat than the drugs that we've seen historically. So I think that we're all really trying to figure out, what are we going to do? How are we going to treat it? What is the best practice?